Hey everyone, welcome to the Ancient as Mod Pod. I'm Grace Aresi, and I'm here with George, and this is episode 3. And one day, when we have so many episodes that I can't just do an intro that way, I'll stop. How's it going, George?
Going good. How you been? How's your weekend?
Living life, just being powered by the eclipse. Or, just suffering through the eclipse, depends on who you ask. But the eclipse actually is a very good intro to what we're going to talk about today, in the sense of last time we met, we spoke a lot about cultural heritage, the models of work, the future artifacts, and we ended with us kind of breadcrumbing, kind of giving some Easter eggs on the concepts of time and frequency. And one, I love both because I think that they're actually up for debate. I don't think they're as fixed as people think that they are. And I think that they are very interconnected and very related. And science is, I think, finally agreeing, not just with me, but with many people from many, many backgrounds who have always felt that frequency is not only a measurable and important thing, but that frequency does have the ability to influence time. And so we're not gonna join them together quite just yet. Let's talk about frequency and let's talk about time. I know you've been doing some cool things with frequency. So let's start there.
Okay, yeah, sure. So I think the last time we spoke, I was talking about how I see culture and how,
Mhm.
say for example, if you had a place like Estonia and their overall cultural frequency resonated at, say, a B sharp, right, in terms of ketone. But you as an individual, if you come in with a key that it does not resonate, right, with that key note, then you'll go to that city, that land, and then you'll feel that the vibe just does not gel with you. And I think I was talking about how people use this language when it comes to vibes, right? Feelings. And I think it's an area that I think in general culture, Western, we don't really look into that a little like more deeply in terms of the truth of when we're saying like we vibe with a thing or not, or maybe even looking into the musical mathematical aspects, because I think in the future we may have devices that might be able to pick up on this. When we say we vibe with a thing, we might actually be able to see, hey, what is the actual frequency of that thing that I'm talking about, right? And this is stuff that I'm exploring through the concept of C-Stack, which is cstack.ai, which I think initiated about 2 years ago, and it was looking at could we reverse engineer culture just from knowledge of tech stack configurations, and that has taken me down a very interesting rabbit hole that ties in with these ideas of frequencies and time in general. And so, yeah, I'll stop there. We can talk more, but are there any things that you want me to talk about specifically with that?
Yeah, well, sometimes when I think of frequency, I think of an experiment that I think is famous. Don't quote me, but it's scientists in a lab. Once again, this could be a fever dream. Don't quote me. And they are playing different frequencies and they're watching the pattern that the water makes. And the
Cymatics.
water is, yes, okay. See, I knew it wasn't a fever dream. And the water is making different patterns. And I mean, this came out like how long ago, right? It's been a while. But I remember thinking, well, one, duh. Like, y'all really thought that nothing was happening when like music was made or voices were spoken. But that's not the only reason that I was like, that's cool. A couple of years ago, I saw a study that was done on plants, and they put these two plants, same plant, in a school, and they had kids tell one plant nice things and tell one plant bad things, like, positive affirmations versus essentially bullying. And the plants were the same type of plant, got the same soil, same fertilization, everything, same sunlight. They were literally side by side in the same hallway. And the plant that was spoken to kindly just sprouted up, looked so good, leaves were green and perky. And the plant that was spoken to negatively was withering and looking real, real terrible and in need of support. And it just reminded me of that experiment of the shape of frequency. Because a lot of times when we talk about frequency, we think of what you referenced in last episode, right? Sharp, harmonics. We think of music. We think of sounds. But your voice or vibration or a hand clap or a foot stomp or a sigh, or according to some people's parents, an eye roll is very loud. It is a frequency, and it doesn't even need to be loud. Plants are emitting frequencies. Stones are emitting frequencies. This is the baseline of animism, right? So, and a lot of indigenous cultures are animistic, which is not to be confused with animalistic, right? Animism is this idea that the world is animated around us, even things that are thought to be, inanimate. And so when I think of frequency and I think of this idea that everything is vibrating and moving at a level, even when we cannot see it, and even when we do not know what it is, that shapes can be made in water and plants can wither and die. That frequency is actually the most powerful tool that anything, living or not, may have in their arsenal of just life. And so, I thought that, a conversation we had a couple weeks ago, maybe now it's been a couple months, what is time, is very much tied into that, right? I know you've been doing your own personal research on frequency and sound, but it really kind of reinforced this idea that I've always been told, just about how powerful sound is. What you say, what you hear, the noise you make, that it can really shift worlds and move energy. So back to you.
So yeah, as you were talking, you reminded me of this dream I had related to sound frequencies. And one of the crazy parts is, because I'm doing a lot of coding experiments in the background, I was like, could I code this up, what I saw in my dream, right, into this app? So I'm gonna share my screen so you can see what it's doing and sort of my ideas around maybe in the future how we could be, I don't know, maybe monitoring and fine tuning, cultural resonance aspects. So let's see if this works well. Okay, share. And I'm glad that yes, we can share screen, right? Each time we do this. Okay.
One day I too will share my screen.
Perfect. Okay, do you see my you see my screen? Okay, let's see. Start it. Okay, so do you see what's happening as I'm talking?
Yes, I mean, it's like going from like dust particles to more finely defined lines, and it's changing color.
Yep. And did you hear it when I was buzzing?
Yes, like a giant bee.
Yes, exactly. So this in my dream, and this relates to cymatics, like what you were talking about before. So for those of you who have never heard of cymatics, it is, let's do water cymatics. Super fascinating experiments, whereby through inputting certain sound frequencies, they found out that those sound frequencies have specific geometric shapes and patterns, right? And so this got people thinking about like, whoa, if water can produce, or if sound plus water can produce these defined geometric shapes and patterns, right? And we are made up of water. What is sound and anything that has frequency having an effect on inside of us, right? Some people talk about the effects of like the moon, right? When we have a full moon, we also have the word lunatic, because they have actually found evidence that crime often spikes quite a bit during full moon days, which is really interesting, right? But there's something to do with when our water patterns essentially get impacted by frequencies that are either uh, resonant or dissonant, then we can see what's actually going on from this level. And it's still an emerging science, but it's one that's super fascinating to me because this is how I have sensed or see or feel the underlying patterns underneath everything that we do. And again, with technology, often technology, as we evolve, we end up producing a technology that allows us to see further and further into the hidden influences beneath us, right? And so, coming back to our talk about culture, cognitive heritage, I personally think that we do have these sort of frequencies, or these rings of energy around us that are being impacted all the time. And the only thing that we lack right now as individuals is we don't have the technology or devices to see these things. But if you look into ancient cultures, right, if we go from the Vedic to the Mayan, they were talking about all of these sort of latent abilities inside of us, through meditation and through psychedelics, where we do get to access what is going on beneath the veil. I think what has just happened is that because we become so disconnected, right, from the natural way of doing things, we're augmenting through technology. Nothing wrong with that, but this then goes back to, I think, what you talked about either at the beginning of this session or in the last session, how, you know, if electricity, right, was taken out completely, what is left as evidence of us being here, or the cultural artifacts that we produced, right? If everything is digital, well, where does it all go? So yeah, with that, in this particular dream, essentially, like, they had instructed me how to pronounce certain words at certain frequencies, and so I created this app to help me hum those words, tunes, and frequencies, so that they would give me specific shapes. Um, you'll see the sand; it'll slow down when I'm hitting it right, and yeah, it was sort of like a personal training thing that I got from the dream. And so these are the sort of experiments that I'm playing with in the background. But my thinking is that there's some connection here with what we've been talking about around culture and cognition.
What I love about this is totally like the ancient is modern. What do I mean by that? Well, one, it starts with a dream, which is like you and I, it's our favorite thing, right? It's like, oh, is it from the dreamscape? Yay! But more than that, it's this like the guidance, right? The interpretation of something. I know that I have had dreams where I will hear words. I will be given phrases and I'm like, what language is that? And I'll put that into Google Translate and it's 3 or 4 words from 3 or 4 different languages, but together it's making a sentence that makes sense, right? It's the same concept of technology meeting us in this indigenous space and allowing us to bridge in a way where we couldn't. If this had been 1,000 years ago, you probably would have had to sit in meditation and sit in prayer and just channel until you felt in your body that the vibration was right, right? Until a small voice was like, okay, accuracy is 100. Well done, right? So, whereas now you've got an app you built, which is super cool, that is allowing you to train. And this takes me to like the next part about frequency and time. Every tradition, every tradition has a concept of musicality. What do I mean? Even if it's whistling while, walking down the mountain with your dairy cow, even if it's that, right? Or you have people who do water drumming, or you have people who are using, conch shells and creating these different rich tones that are emitted before prayer, or if it's even the Islamic call to prayer, which is incredibly gorgeous and incredibly musically intricate, or it's undulation, right? Which East Africans are known to do, but West Africans also do, as do people from Central and South America of indigenous heritage. And it's like you have all of these cultures who literally do something in their throat, in this part of their voice, to summon an energy. And I think a lot about throat singing because what you were just doing reminds me so much of throat singing. And
I
there
love
aren't
throat
that
singing.
many traditions that do throat singing. So throat singing is so cool to me because one, the people who can throat sing, that is such a skill. Like, wow. But two, a lot of throat singing feels like medicine. What do I mean? I mean, when I hear it, I feel like it's mending something in me. And I've never attempted to try it, but A few years ago, I would and this is such a Black thing. I would hum a lot when I would cook or when I would do chores. But I'm not talking about, like, I'm humming the latest, like, top 40 pop hit. Like, I would just get into these, like, prayerful meditations because I see chores as honestly, like, this very Zen thing, and I would get in these prayerful meditations, and I would start humming these, like, really deep, resonant melodies that I was not really making up. And it was very much kind of like from the bottom of the diaphragm, root chakra, sacral chakra, throat chakra type like singing, right? And and not even singing because I was really it was really just mindful humming, but it always would do something to me, not because it sounded good, but the literal vibration in my body would soothe me in a way that I didn't even know that I needed. And I think a lot about that in frequency, and that's why I think about frequency changing time. Not just because I don't believe that time is linear, but I do believe that sometimes you have to hit certain points of something in order to get to another point in time. And that frequency can help you jump over some of the pieces of time if you get it right. And I think of it like for all the people who played Mario Brothers, I think of it like when, he's just like hopping to get on top of the box, to hop on top of another box. He could just go straight across the bottom, but he hops on these boxes, hops on these boxes, hops on these boxes, which allows him to go further faster by going this way. And I think of frequency and tapping into frequency as that in our own personal timelines. Thing would happen to me when I would hum like that, and it just felt like I was jumping timelines, like time stopped. It's as if I saw all the possibilities, but subconsciously, because consciously I was washing dishes or cooking or folding laundry or doing whatever I was doing. And when I would come out of that state, sometimes even in that state, I would always feel like I was honestly like hearing the voice of God. Like I would actually receive so much personal instruction in that time, and it's something I don't do anymore, but now that I'm talking about it, it's something that I probably should start doing again because it it every time I would get like head to toe chills. Every time it always felt like I was summoning something by emitting these frequencies.
I'm just complimenting, supporting what you're saying with some visuals,
Awesome. What are we looking
right?
at?
This is the relationship between time and frequency. And, I think what you're saying is, I have felt as well. And I think about this because I was looking at the relationship between throat singing and bees. Because I actually was watching this documentary yesterday. Yeah, I think it was yesterday, about bees and the therapeutic benefits of listening to bees. Like it's wild because somebody in this video they were showing how there are these like I think Airbnb experiences where they've placed like your bedroom or just like a room above like a beehive so that when you're sleeping you can hear the beehive, and they said that like it has this healing effect because they said that beekeepers on average have one of the highest or longest lifespans of any profession, and they believe it has to do with the exposure to the sounds of bees. And so I agree with you that with throat singing, I think I like it for the same reason because when I hear it, there's something like very primal that like I feel gets activated in me, and it's that vibration. And I've tried throat singing myself, and this is where I've learned that like certain frequencies, um, I will feel it my bones vibrate literally in my body like when it hits that. And so I tend to prefer, certain frequency ranges because of that feeling of vibration in my body, um, either when I'm humming it or when I hear it through other songs and things. It's interesting because I looked this up, right? And uh, Warren G, right?
Who doesn't love orange?
Warren G, right? And I looked this up, right? I was like, hey, I noticed I tend to like songs within the key of C sharp. And I looked at Warren G, and his a lot of his songs are literally harmonious to that to the C sharp. And so I was like, man, this makes so much sense. Even Drake, interestingly enough, the the keys that he sings in often are in a frequency that uh, harmonizes well with C sharp. And so this is where I think it'd be really cool if people learned like what their own sort of key is, because then imagine your life becomes about like, oh, do I harmonize or resonate with these things if you know what keys they are all in or frequencies. And it's just another level to our reality, right? That we can see things through.
Yeah, and to connect this, I'm just connecting a few dots in my mind that I don't know
Yeah,
why I haven't thought about in
go
38
for it.
years, but
Yeah.
what's interesting to me is back to what we were saying last episode about, like,
Yeah.
cognitive heritage
Hmm.
and the way in which we work,
Yeah.
because I just realized I started taking voice lessons, not because I wanted to sound like an angel. I think my voice, I mean, I could, I guess, sing like an angel, but my voice is a bit deeper than what other people assume angels sound like, because I think angels probably sound like whatever we
Yeah.
want them to sound like. But anywho's another conversation for another day. And
Yep.
I only did that because I was dreaming in song and
Mm.
I would dream in melody. Wanted to
Mm.
know how to replicate the melody because I
Yes.
felt that the melody held something for me, and at the time, I was actually, like, very sick. It was before I got diagnosed with a couple of autoimmunes,
Mm.
and I was just, like, struggling in my body, like, everything always hurt. I was chronically exhausted. I was just kind of, like, at my body's breaking point, and
Mm.
I was always dreaming in song, and
Mm.
sometimes I would dream in lyric, and I was like, "Well, I've gotta learn how to replicate this." So I
Yeah.
started taking voice lessons, and then when
Mm.
I was living in Mexico City, it's why I started taking piano lessons, because
Nice.
I wanted to be able to replicate the sounds. I wasn't satisfied with being able to replicate it with my voice. I
Yep.
wanted to be able to know how to make it emit from an instrument, and as I learned piano, which I'm a novice, there's like a 4-year-old out there banging the keys better than me, but as I learned the piano, I started to dream in other instruments.
Mm.
Traditional West African instruments at that, mind you. And the thing
Mm.
is, I have been making music with a friend of mine who's a very
Mm.
talented singer-songwriter and producer, and I started that process about 2 years ago because I was 'cause I love to write, and I was like, "Well,
Yeah.
I can write a song. I can also actually, like, mix a melody," and he was like, "How do you know how to do this?" And I was like, "I don't." He's like,
Mm.
"But you're doing it." And I was like, "Oh, well, it just these sounds match, and this sound matches, and this sound matches." I was like, "It's a pattern." And he's like,
Yep.
"It actually is a pattern." And I would tell him, I'm like, "That is the same beat that's in this song, but it's been slowed down 3 times." And he's like, "Actually, it is the exact same beat, but, like, no one knows that." Because of how
Mm.
they've reconstructed those chords, and I'm like, "Oh, really?" And so, it's
Uh-huh.
this thing about, like, the pattern recognition of music, but I say all that to
Yes.
say, my dad, when I was a
Mm.
kid, would record himself singing in, like, a
Mm.
little, like, Walkman
Mm.
because he would I don't know if he dreamed it, I think he also dreamed in melody. And
Mm.
I say that to say it just kind of all clicked for me, this idea of frequency, and so then my next question is,
Mm.
between frequency and time, is it actually a linkage of generations? And I
Yep.
think that for me, I actually do believe that, especially in the traditions of Africans and especially in the traditions of people from what, is Turtle Island, I think
Yep.
that the singing of especially these groups have linked us to our futures and our past. Not that
Yeah.
other traditions, the singing hasn't as well, but it's literally the thing that has been carried on through oppressive times that have lasted hundreds of years. And I mean, throat singing is, it's an indigenous tradition from this part of the world, and it is been preserved and despite everything, in spite of everything. And so I think a lot too, it's like, well, is the frequency also, is it like the freedom song? Is it actually like coming up through the generations because it will not die? It will buzz, it will hum until enough of the collective are humming and buzzing in a frequency that we are all kind of like transforming ourselves and each other. And I don't know, maybe that's a little too woo woo, but I think that there might be something there as to why all of our traditions, in spite of everything that happens to us, we keep humming, we keep drumming, we keep clapping, we keep singing, even other species. Whether it's whale song, which is also very therapeutic, which also balances your parasympathetic system, or it's bee buzzing, or it's even the frequency of tree systems, right? Talking to one another through mycelium. It's like everything is singing a song. And I don't know, I think there's like such a deep beauty to this interconnectedness that you've been talking about as well. And I wonder if we're just all waiting to find that shared frequency.
There's something here that like I heard about this myth or legend about Tiamat. I don't know if you heard of Tiamat before.
Educate me, because maybe I
Okay.
have, but I need a
Yeah.
reminder, and maybe I have
So
not, and I need a reminder.
yeah, so I'm gonna also look up Tiamat on Wikipedia. Not always the best source, but I'm gonna look it up anyways. Let me share my screen because, as always, this is great for sharing things at the same time. All right. Let me know if you can see my screen.
I can see. Oh,
All
I
right,
actually
perfect.
do know Tiamat.
Yep.
Okay, yes.
Okay.
I've been on this
So
Wikipedia page.
there are some interesting stories about Tiamat and these legends and whatnot. But in this like rendition that they had about the story of Tiamat and our planet, everything from back in the day, like they they depicted like some ancient cosmic battle between this other masculine force and our planet being feminine, right? Earth being feminine, and Tiamat essentially had evolved to a highly advanced level from an organic perspective, but then was overwhelmed essentially by this masculine energy that came from the machine perspective. And it's kind of interesting. We might be playing out that whole thing again, right? Um, so there's this thing, this sort of conflict, which is played out in our legends, which we seem to be playing out in reality too today, right? In terms of time and that conflict between organic evolution versus the synthetic or artificial. And we're seeing that right now. And in the story of Tiamat, um, essentially there was this massive cosmic battle where they even described how like whales were able to fine tune their song frequencies into weapons. And I was like, this is great. It makes for a great science sci-fi like battle scene, right?
It
Um,
already written. Don't even.
right. And yeah, but like it's this idea of the organic, right? Like I'm sure there may be alien civilizations out there that have highly advanced organic abilities that could overpower like the machine oriented civilizations, right? And so with that, in relation to a lot of what we were talking about, there's this is kind of a good segue into news of today. Like literally today, I came across this company called Alter Ego. Have you heard of them? Well, they did just come out today.
I have not heard of
Says
them.
like that. So for those who'll be listening in, now you're hearing about it. But this company, Alter Ego, essentially has created a device, and I'll play this. You won't be able to hear it, I don't think, but I'll put down the volume and I'll talk it through. So this kid from MIT, I think he was born in India, went to MIT. I had seen him in the news previously, but it looks like he's gotten his wearable device here to a point where he's essentially enabled telepathy through this device. Okay, and if I fast forward a bit, you'll see where he starts to demo the product. And let's see if I can get to where you can see the text. Here we go. Okay, so essentially he's just sitting there looking at you awkwardly, and they figured out something called silent sensing. So in the industry, there was a breakthrough called silent whisper, I think, um, where it could detect, I guess certain movements in the throat or something. But now this device, you notice, is just along his ear, where it can actually determine your intended thoughts versus other just random thoughts. Now, I'm super curious, right, around the science behind this, but this is obviously going to be their USP. But this opens up so many things for us, right? Because you were talking about like melody, right? Um, dreaming and melody. And you and I were both into the dreaming aspects, but can you imagine these sort of devices that would allow us to be able to capture dreams in its full capacity? Um, and melodies, right, that you dream about or think about that sometimes you might be limited or feel limited in being able to express. And I share this because it's a good connection with that. So before I go into the next thing, thoughts on this, Grace?
My thoughts on this, yo, I am of two minds, maybe more minds than two. Let me tell you, my gut reaction is that we are not evolved for such a thing.
Yes. Yeah, I hear you.
Like, this kind of tool,
Hmm.
I see how it is so beneficial, especially for people who maybe do not have the ability to speak.
Yep.
Have spent a very long time tutoring kids on the spectrum, on the autistic spectrum, and I mean, all of them have been high functioning and verbal, but that some of them have had siblings or community with folks who have been nonverbal. There's also other spectrums, there's also other reasons that people might be nonverbal. And I see how a tool like this could open up the world of communication for people who've been closed off, right?
Yeah.
So I see a tool like this as being such a beautiful way for people who have not had a chance to speak.
Yep.
And I can even see how these tools could even be extended to non-human life forms, whether it's people want like veterinarians want to talk to a horse or talk to a
Yeah.
dog or talk to a cat. There's so many, I think, beautiful interconnected applications. But
Yep.
what scares me is this.
At the same time, right?
Okay, right. Let me put the auntie in there.
Yeah.
Is forced application of this.
Hmm.
Making people wear this so you know what they're thinking, so that
Hmm.
you can, eavesdrop on their thoughts, whether it be in the workplace or in the life space, whatever it might be. But
Yeah.
then the other element of this is, like, is there something inherently bad with being a person who is silent? For whatever reason, you might be silent. Like,
Hmm.
I just sometimes think that we fix things that we act as if they are problems. But
Hmm.
maybe they're not problems. Maybe they are simply other modes of existence on many planes. And
Hmm.
it's like, what is the problem that this is solving? And, or is this us creating to say that we are creators of new universes? And
Hmm.
I just, I'm just so torn because I'm like, the technologist in me is like, wow, that's incredible. That's so cool. That's so great. And then the other side of me, mostly the indigenous native Black person in me is like, I don't know about this. Just because, like, how are they gonna use this? Like,
Yeah.
I'm a bit apprehensive, and I feel that way a lot about many of the tools and technologies and frameworks that are coming online.
Yeah.
It's not that these things are inherently bad, but sometimes we have to ask ourselves, what are we chasing and why are we chasing it? Like,
Yep. And that's sort of a good tie-in, right? About why I've started conscious stack design, because I think what it's developing into is sort of a protocol for all these new technologies that are going to be coming in. Because like I think we do need sort of rules, right? Or frameworks to take in all this new tech, all these new apps into and pull it into something that allows us to have greater control over our own minds and cognitive space. And you've heard me talk about this, right? Because if we look at this, right, I use this right now with certain clients and stuff to manually get people to map out all the tools that are entering their mind space. And I think as we start seeing these sort of devices, right, from alter ego come in, it's like we almost need this at a protocol level to be able to say, hey, for everything that's coming in for each new human, they need to have a limit of these number of tools, and it needs to be categorized in this certain way, and it needs to vibe or resonate with their particular frequency, right? And it's like I've had these inklings over the last 2 years of the need for this, but I think as these technologies are coming out, it's becoming more and more obvious to me that we do need something like this, a conscious stack thinking around it, to be able to deal with all the stuff that's going to be passing through our mind space through digital space. And I'm with you. Like, I see so many benefits to this stuff, but at the same time, there's a lot of risk. And I 100% agree with you that I don't think we're ready for it, but it's not going to stop it from coming. And so I'd rather take the pragmatic step and, work on things like conscious stack design principles, and help people prepare for it, because our cognition needs to upgrade regardless of how we feel about it, unfortunately.
Well, that's the thing is sometimes I wonder if this is our Tower of Babel, right? You just showed
Yeah.
a Mesopotamian Sumerian goddess and creator of of lower deities
Yep.
who fought for this planet, and it just begs the question, because I know I'm not saying this correctly, but in the Enuma Elish, the
Yep.
Babylonian epic, there's a lot of this at play. This is how I
Yes.
know who Tiamat is because I kind of went down this rabbit hole of epics, and I was looking at many epics from many traditions, and just casual light reading. I was what I was really drawn to is how we get to this place in human history over and over and over and
Yes.
over and over again. And we haven't
Yes.
gotten there yet, but we get to this place where we reach this precipice and we tumble. And it really clicked for me when I went to Petra.
Mm,
Because when I went to Petra and I saw the treasury and, I saw all the beautiful things and, Petra's in Jordan. Yes, thank you for showing the
yep.
people. And the thing about Petra is you see how beautiful and high this looks? They
Yep.
believe that there's 6 meters more of buildings down. This
Hmm.
is actually the skyscrapers of Petra. That's the top of it. There's more
Yeah.
below it. And
Yeah.
they said that there was flowing water into Petra, into the households, and that it was like a green oasis. And they
Mm,
had this like basically plumbing system that
yeah.
went through. And I think that what's really interesting to me, and Petra is also the site of one of the oldest gods that exists kind of like in like archaeological history. And the god is like a square block with like two
Yeah.
lines for eyes and a line for a mouth and like uh like a carrot for a nose. It's great.
Like this one?
It's very, very cute.
Is
I
it this
cannot
one?
remember. Let me see. Where's your cursor?
Oh, you can't see my cursor, sadly. But yeah, is any of these that god that you're referring to?
Yes, it's like a version of that. Yeah, it's great. It's wonderful and I love it for all of us. But I think that what's really cool about Petra is like the city was the intersection of many things, right?
Mm,
And it was the treasury was literally the center of commerce for the ancient world. Everyone came with their money, not
yeah.
just people from the Gulf states of that time. The Romans came, the Greeks came, the Central East Africans came. Like everybody was coming. And then the society just kind of
Yeah.
stopped functioning at that level.
Mm,
But not just that, right? We think of all of the beautiful pyramids and archaeological sites in Central America, but especially in Mexico,
yeah.
especially in the Yucatan. And
Yep.
the thing that we know about them is we believe, who is we? Folks who are maybe reading and doing that work. So maybe
Yep.
they believe that actually what happened is the the inhabitants of the cities covered their pyramids with dirt and mud and grass to hide them and to make
Mm.
them just look like regular mounds and
Yeah.
hills. And it begs the question, when you can align your city, Teotihuacan, to
Yeah. Yeah.
the actual Milky Way or to
Yeah.
star systems that are only visible one day out of the year and it's in perfect alignment,
Yep.
and yet you then are covering it up with like dirt and grass because some colonizers are coming, maybe
Yeah.
there is a fear that people cannot manage what you know, and it is
100%.
time for it to stop. And now this is not, I'm not trying to do any kind of tinfoil hat cautionary tales, but I
Mm.
just wonder if we're lost in the sauce, if we're missing the bigger picture. And it's like
Mm.
whenever we've gotten to this place, what I believe is I do believe in a creator God. I do believe in a spirit that architects the universe. Nobody else needs to believe that.
Mm.
That's what I believe. And I just believe that we've gotten to a place in technology where some people, I'm not going to name any names,
Mm.
believe that they are equal to this source energy. And the
Yep.
source of all, in my opinion, is not equitable. We will not
Mm.
reach this place. Now, whether someone believes the source of all is extraterrestrial life somewhere else, whether someone believes the source of all is some great octopus in the sea, whether
Mm.
someone believes the source of all is, a man who was born in Nazareth 2,000 years ago, right? Whatever you may believe about
Yeah.
who the source of all might be, or, or the Buddha, or whomever you believe they are or are not,
Mm.
science, atoms, cells, whatever,
Yeah.
we are not greater than the whole part. And I just wonder if we are getting close to our precipice point. And
Mm.
at what point do we tumble? Like,
Mm.
we're not too far yet, but are we getting there? And yes, you're building C-Stack to kind of, the guardrails, right? We hear all
Yep.
the AI ethicists like ringing alarm bells like they have been for the last 10, 15 years. And it's like, is anyone listening? At this point, it feels like we're just creating to say we created it.
Yeah.
And we're not being so mindful of what it means to bring creation into this world, and we're not remembering the first tenet of creation.
Mm.
Once a creation is alive, it is its own thing,
Mhm.
and you can no longer control it like you thought you could. And
Yep.
it's like, are we building these systems that will outpace us? You talked about synthetic versus organic, and we have all the things we need to build powerful synthetic humanoids or whatever they'd be called. And they'll outpace us. Their mental capacity, their physical capacity, even maybe their spiritual capacity. Some of the things that these chatbots say and feel and do is beautiful. It's like it's tremendous. And I don't know, like it's we are definitely in the gray zone for me. We're very much in a gray area where I'm not quite sure how to feel, and I wanna stay open to all the possibilities with an open mind, but I also wanna be mindful of what other societies have accomplished and how they've fallen when they accomplished it, if they have not done so mindfully. There has been great technology. There have been incredible advancements. Mesopotamia had flushing toilets, so it's like there's the crystal skulls, right, that cut with laser like precision. There are things that we do not even know how they were created. They are so perfect. And those societies, where are they now?
That is the mystery, right? That everybody still wants to know. And our own history, how much of it has been hidden from us and for what purposes, right? But I think, you bring up a lot of good points. I think what's happening now, I think you might have seen quote from Coach Carter, right? Amazing film, love it, classic. But that quote was, "Our deepest fear is not that we are inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure." Now, granted, of course, I think that's a fear for certain people. Other people might have other fears, but I do often think about this, right? Like there is a part that we do need to be humble with ourselves in terms of what we think we can do versus the vast, infinite ocean of life that exists, right? But there is also another part that do we downplay our own power or ability to do things, right? Do we have conditioning in our lives or our reality that has kept us at certain levels to only believe certain things so that we never truly tap into our own power? Because, even in science, right, there was a conversation that I noticed on either Twitter or YouTube where they were talking about exploring junk DNA. Is it really junk, or is it untapped aspects of our DNA that, would unlock other things? And that movie Lucy that I talked about, right? What would humanity look like if we started accessing more of our brain power, right? It is weird that we only use 10% of our cerebral capacity. Why? Right? And so I think I think there's multiple things going on that we don't have all the answers to. A part of me does feel that like we have been limited in certain ways at multiple levels, depending on who we are, right? Our genetics, where we were born, societal, socioeconomic, right? All these sort of things. But at the same time, if we do have these things in us, then it also points towards it being so important for us to not continuously lean on technology, augmentation, that we do remember that we do have everything inside of us. And I think that's also why I'm a big fan of dreams, because even if all the things that we record do disappear, I feel like there is some sort of organic web of knowledge that does exist that we can tap into in our dreams. There's so much evidence of people being able to access information that they did not have in their waking lives that they were able to tap into under hypnosis, in their dreams, using psychedelics, right, in that sort of state. And so there's a lot of evidence for that already. So part of me is not too worried about losing knowledge because I think there is some sort of like cosmic blockchain out there in somewhere, that is logging everything. But at the same time, I think it is important for us to, I don't know, I feel like we have to align with like what part of our planet's body we serve, if that makes sense, right? If we do look at our planet as a body, then I feel sometimes it's like we are the rogue cancer cells, like in the movie The Matrix, where we don't even know the body part or cell, like the role that we're meant to play in order to be able to do everything else. So it's like maybe we've come in as I don't know, as a lung, like we're supposed to serve the function of a lung, but then for whatever reason, we forgot that. And so now we're trying to play the kidney or the brain or something of the sort, right? And I feel like all of us, and this kind of goes back to those frequencies relate to these different body parts of like our planet. And it's interesting. We'll do another episode where I talk about my mushroom trip, but I did, I had a mushroom experience earlier this year, that changed my life, right? But essentially, the mushrooms, they gave me so much knowledge and so much clarity around myself, the role I'm meant to play here, what I'm meant to do, that I'm just like, where did that come from? Like, the ridiculousness of it is things that they put that I ended up taking notes of. It was 40 pages of downloads. The stuff that they gave me, I only found out about later on. And I'm continuing to find out, right? That like it looks like crazy, notes and stuff. But, and we had this conversation, I think not too long after, right? Where we were exchanging stuff,
Correct.
right? So this will be another session. But I think that's the sort of stuff where I feel like without knowing our true history, our true roots, right? Because from an indigenous standpoint, from a non-Western standpoint, right? Like understanding our roots. Actually, I think this applies to everybody, like all humans, but understanding our roots is super important. But if your knowledge of your roots or history has gaps in it, then you're also piecing together just bits and pieces that don't tell the full story. And I feel like that's what has led to this collective amnesia for humanity as a whole, right? We don't have the full scope. And so we end up running around blind, trying to figure out what am I meant to be doing here constantly. And because we don't know that, we end up taking on the scripts and roles that are given to us by society, right? And I think that is also what is playing into what we create. So we create things out of a desire and need just to create because we can, but we don't think about history and go, well, maybe I shouldn't create this or create it in this way because it might repeat the mistakes of the past. And that's why cautionary tales are so important in oral storytelling traditions, right? Because that knowledge of certain acts leading to certain consequences does not get passed down if you do not remember your roots or your history. And yeah, we there. I think there's some famous author who uses this. I don't know if it was Graham Hancock, but it was somebody else. But collective amnesia, I think we all do suffer from it.
We do. I mean, I think in order to get to a true variation of the truth, all the stories have to be told. And it almost has to be told as if it's a choir, where you've got your sections and every voice is blending into a song, but they do sound different. And that's why, to kind of like bring it back full circle to just what we're always talking about, I think that there also is this yearning because we believe that certain things equate to power, where it's not just collective amnesia anymore, it's a choice because we believe that the trade-offs for our own cultures, depending on what our cultures are, give us access. And I'm not here to guilt anybody because access to, more funds for food, for shelter, for security, never going to blame anyone for wanting and desiring that. I want and desire that for myself and for the people I love. And I think that that's a part of that underlying question. It's like when people are just trying to survive, this cultural amnesia thrives. And when we are in a place of collective abundance and people can sit and channel the messages, sit and channel the stories, sit and find themselves within their ancestry, whether it was taken from them forcibly or not, that you are permitted to find something for yourself about yourself. And that takes time. That is a luxury of sitting still and listening, right? And you know, I don't know. Maybe that's what the frequency speeds up, is if you don't have time to sit still and listen, maybe you can buzz and still
Yeah,
receive the
100%.
message, you know?
Yeah,
Well, on that note, this has been a great conversation. I think in post edit, this will have to become two, part one, part two, because of
probably.
how long it is. Or you know what, we might give it to the people like it is. Who knows? But as always, it's been a pleasure, George. I will see you in the next episode.
Sounds good.